Good afternoon. This is Copiosis.com's YouTube live stream called Devil Advocate. And we're playing around today with some really sticky questions that people are asking us from around the internets. And we're answering those questions in a way that allows people to better understand our innovation. You are on the Copiosis YouTube channel, and I encourage you to subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell, because when you click that bell, you get notified of any pre-scheduled live streams or other videos that we upload. And we have a catalog of about 200 videos that we're going to be uploading in the future. I'm Perry Gruber, the founder of Copiosis and your host here, or co-host, I should say, for Devil's Advocate. And if you're interested in finding out more about Copiosis, if you're new or maybe you have some questions, actually, if you're interested in sending a question to Devil's Advocate, please feel free to do so via the email info@copiosis.com, or you can put your question right in the comment section of this live stream. Also, if you're new to Copiosis and you want to find out more, we've got a great website with a ton of information on it at this URL, copiosis.com, and then this URL allows you to find out where the money is going that people are sending us to implement our international transition plan to this new future where all necessities are provided to all at no cost and everybody is rich. And no, this is not utopian bullshit. So joining me is Jill Dell, our resident Devil's Advocate. Hi, Jill. How's it going?
It's going great. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to everybody. Yes, indeedy. Jill keeps me on the straight and narrow with regard to being all PC. So thank you, Jill. So yeah, happy holidays. It's the holiday season, and she's like, right. What? Say what? So we got a really interesting show today. Jill and I talked ahead of time about the questions she's going to be asking, and I'm sure that the audience is going to find this very interesting. So Jill, you want to just kick it off?
Well, I'm going to kind of revisit something that we've talked about previously.
Yeah.
Because I had a conversation with one of my nieces, and I can really answer the question. So I'm just going to start off with one that's probably pretty simple for you to answer. So let's say they're into classic cars. Okay. So let's say we're in Copiosis, and she has an opportunity to obtain a classic car, and the purchase price is 10,000 NBR. And so they're clear across the country, the person that she's getting it from, and then she gets the car. Okay, so let's start with, she's like, $10,000 has come out of her NBR account. Okay. So then she gets the car. Now, does the person who gave up the car get 10,000 NBR, or is the NBR they get determined by her satisfaction with the car? How maybe you could jump in on that part first.
Yeah, it's a common question that people have who don't have a clear understanding on how Copiosis works. And it would be really great if I could bring in quickly a graphic that would illustrate this. But since this is a live stream and I did not prepare to do that, I'm not going to do it. But one of the concerns that people have, and your friend's question is illustrating that, is how do people who sell things get the money from the thing they've sold? And in Copiosis, there really isn't any selling because there are no exchanges. And recently, interestingly, a lot of people on Twitter are talking about the fact they believe that there's a barter system in Copiosis, and there's not. There are no exchanges. So if I give you something, you don't give me something in return. That would be an exchange. Instead, what happens is the person with the thing gives it to the person who wants it. The algorithm measures the benefit the person who got the thing receives from having the thing, and then the Copiosis organization rewards the person who previously had it, who gave it to the person who now has it, with a reward commensurate with the amount of benefit that thing the consumer now has is benefiting them. So yeah, your friend's question would simply be answered like this. So first of all, your friend who has the person who has the collectible car would decide how much NBR another person would need to own that
Yeah.
valuable thing. Yeah. And they would create what's called a gateway equivalent to that much NBR. So anyone who wants that car would have to have that much NBR. Let's say they're across the country, like you said, and they have negotiated over the internet or phone or whatever, uh, an agreement to move the car to the new owner. So someone would come along and take the car. It's likely that that car would be ferried. It would not be driven because it's a collectible, I would presume, right? They wouldn't
Right.
want to drive it across the country.
Them and they get it, and yeah.
Right. So
Got
it would be ferried to them, and of course there would be a blockchain enabled contract, so a digital contract that would recognize that the car has now been agreed to switch hands between the previous owner, the current owner, and the new owner, right? So that's
right.
enshrined in blockchain. So there's no way to fraudulently destroy that contract because it's in the blockchain. So
Okay.
so at that point, the deal is cemented in blockchain. So now all that's needed is for the property to move over to the new owner. So once the car gets transferred to the new owner at no cost to anyone, because the entity, whether that's a person or an organization that's moving the car, gets awarded for the benefit of moving the car. So now the
Right.
new owner has the car. So the new owner takes the car and they're feeling really happy because they've got this, whatever it is, and this jalopy, and they're driving it or they're washing it or polishing it or whatever collectors do with those cars or keeping it in the garage or what have you. What's that?
Driving it.
Yes, putting it on in shows and things like that. And as they do those things, they're getting a benefit. So some of the benefits that they're getting is they get to belong to this wonderful community of people who appreciate these kind of cars. They get the emotional satisfaction of keeping it clean and up to shape and all that kind of thing. They get the satisfaction. What's that?
Yeah. Preserve history.
That's a good one. I
Preserve.
didn't. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Exactly.
they might even loan that car from time to time to movie makers who are making movies of that period and need those kind of cars to, right, to be in the scenes. Yeah.
And
So
there's ways.
that's right. So there's all kinds of ways that this car is now benefiting the new owner. Now, in every case that the owner gets benefit in that way, the previous owner receives MBR for the benefit that car is producing for that new owner. And that's how they
Okay.
get income.
But initially, the owner who is giving up that vehicle isn't going to receive $10,000 in NBR.
No. So
He's
that
not going to receive any NBR until such point that the person receiving it has determined that they're is using it and enjoying it and has received it and it's in the condition that it was promised to be in, and yada, it runs and there's no mechanical failure or anything like that, right?
actually, those are really good points. So, like, for example, in addition to the blockchain enabled contract that the two parties agreed to, there's also a reputation account component to this deal. So, if the receiver of the car receives a car in bad condition, that new owner can then file a declaration in either the transportation organization's reputation account or the previous owner's reputation account and make a declaration about the crappy state that the car arrived in. That's important for other people that might do business with those entities to know, right? So that's how those kind of things are dealt with. But if the I mean the system is already going to know, Jill, that the car is producing net benefit because the previous owner is employing that car in the same way the new owner would for the most part. And the previous owner is benefiting the previous owner, the person who had the car before the previous owner.
They didn't do a transaction in Copiosis previously. They just owned the car outright from
If that's the case, then that's true.
1940s or whatever, like you don't know. But okay, so here's my other question. So let's say that the new owner, they received the car and it is totally not in the condition that it was proposed to be. Okay. It doesn't run and the transmission's blown and blah, 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 blah. So, uh, they're out 10,000 NBR for this POS, excuse my French, right? And
Yeah.
so is there any manner where they could reverse the transaction and recover?
No, no, there's no way to reverse a transaction once it happens, which is why the transaction doesn't happen until the benefit is known. So like just because just because the new person takes possession of the car doesn't automatically release the MBR. The MBR, the transactional component doesn't complete.
That initial price of 10,000 NBR is not released out of their account until they have uh, received the car and confirmed that it was what they wanted and decided, and then and it agreed that it's everything that they were expecting, and then the NBR would be withdrawn from their account.
Correct.
So
So there's a component of the contract where the negotiation continues, right? So if I receive a car from you and it's a POS, then you and
mhm,
I need, because we both have to agree that the transfer
sure,
has occurred.
right,
So
yeah,
we both agree there's going to be a transfer, and then towards the end of the deal, we both have to agree that there was a transfer. So
right,
at that point, I say, "Hey, Jill, the car you sent me is not the car you said was coming. This car is a POS, and you said it was a piece of diamond, a POD."
exactly, yeah,
And so then
yeah,
yes, and so then
yeah,
we have to negotiate a new um, a gateway
contract,
because yeah, no contract exactly. And there might be a mediator function that might pop up in Copiosis to help people go through this process if the contract is not as straight as it could have been. That would
okay,
be valuable, right? If someone were to create an organization or a group of people that would help people resolve contractual um, disagreements, right? That would be a net
sure,
beneficial service. So I see that popping up. Yeah.
yeah.
So, but
So
the
what if? Okay,
I
go
was just
ahead.
going to say the main point of this question for the listeners is the person who is offering something. Today it's called selling. The person who is offering something doesn't receive the NBR that is described in the gateway.
Right,
It's not a one-time thing. And over time, the amount of MBR they receive, so long as the thing that they provided is producing benefit, over time, the amount of MBR they receive could be much more than the gateway. Because remember,
right,
as long as the
exactly.
benefit keeps showing up, they keep getting MBR. Yeah.
Right. So here's my next question. So, okay, so the original person sold it to this person and they're using it, they're gonna be, and then, 4 or 5 years later, they decide that they want to get something else and or they're gonna like give it to their son, let's say, okay. And so there's basically a whole new owner. And then, so do the parents then get NBR for his enjoyment of the vehicle and the previous owner still gets NBR? Or
That's a
is
really good
it a,
question. Yeah. So
yeah,
we haven't answered that question yet. It doesn't have to be answered yet, but it can go either way, right? So like
yeah,
you could have so think about this is going to sound ridiculous to people who are used to the current system, but think about it.
exactly,
If
exactly,
I have a thing that'll last for 100 years, or let's say 20 generations,
exactly, yeah.
and
I mean,
every
you home that lasts for 500 years, if it's built correctly, right? You don't and maintained. So, yeah. So how is that going to work, right?
right.
Something that
So
lasts
if
that long, right?
right, so if I'm a builder and I build a house that lasts for 2 centuries, unless I live two
Yeah,
centuries, the house is that the benefit's going to outlast me, right?
exactly.
But
Right.
in let's say I last 1 century, so 100 years, and
Okay.
in that 100 years, the house is exchanged, it's transferred across three different families. So
Sure.
it's me, here's a
Yeah.
family, here's a family, now here's the current owner. There's no reason why all three of
Right.
these people, the two families before this person and me, there's no reason why we all should not be getting net benefit.
Oh,
Because actually, let me back that up. Because I was the original builder, it's not the same. So in this case, I still keep getting NBR for all of these people having lived in the house. In
right.
in the case of the car, though, it's different. So in the case of the car, the people who made the car, if it's a vintage car, probably aren't alive because it's a
Right.
vintage car,
Right.
right? Okay.
So
So
you'd be able to trace back to those people anyway. The records wouldn't exist.
exactly.
Right.
But
And we're go ahead.
the
Go
first owner in Copiosis who transfers it to the next person, who then transfers it to the next person, let's say that. So this person here is getting the tangible benefits that we talked about. This person here and
Yes.
this person here can still get get MBR as a result of this person enjoying the benefit, because the MBR that this person's getting is in no way limiting the amount of MBR available to give to anyone else. This person's
Yeah.
MBR could still be being given, and this person's MBR could still be being given too. So, yes, as
Right.
long as the car continues to generate net benefit, anyone who has touched and improved the product could get NBR. The other way to say it is like, or the other way to capture that is to say, okay, here's here's capitalism, here's Copiosis, we've transferred over. Now anything that happened to that car before this time is irrelevant. So
Right.
this becomes the original owner.
Yeah.
And when
This is
and
the beginning.
yes, and so
And
when
going
the
forward.
yes, and
Yeah.
so when this person hands the car to this person, the net benefit income stream comes to this person. When this person gives it
Right.
to this person, the net benefit still income stream still goes to this person because this person owned it, but he wasn't the original owner. It could go
Right.
that way too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't
Makes
really
sense.
matter.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for clarifying that because I think it's hard for people to wrap their minds around because it's so different from, capitalism or any of the other economic systems. All right.
Well,
So
wait,
the
just
next,
before you go to the next question, I just want to add the reason why copiosis is so different and it's a little difficult to figure these kind of scenarios out is because what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture net benefit, measure it, and reward the people responsible. And the challenge is any benefit that's produced endures for a long period of time. And usually, when people jump into that benefit stream and make that benefit more, it just increases the amount of momentum of the benefit enduring. So it does
Mhm.
kind of feel like a multi-level marketing scheme or a Ponzi scheme or something like that. But that's how benefit works. Like when the most recent example we've been using is the example of a birth. When a child comes into the world, all of a sudden an amazing amount of benefit shoots out in all directions. The doctor who birthed the baby gets benefit from the practice of birthing someone. All of the people in the operating room get the same benefit. The mother and father get a benefit from having a child in their lives. The baby gets a benefit from the enjoyment of coming into life. The grandparents get a benefit from now becoming grandparents. And then as the child moves through life, benefit shoots out from this person in every direction. Their siblings benefit, their friends benefit, the school benefits, the teacher benefits, the society benefits. And so there's benefits shooting all over everywhere from every individual human being. And so when you create a system like ours that attempts to measure that, it really becomes like an infinite net, an infinite web of benefit going in all directions. And what we're trying to do, which capitalism doesn't even attempt to do, it doesn't even attempt it. What we're doing or trying to do is capture all of that benefit and reward the originators of that benefit. It's the first time it's ever been tried, in my opinion. Good
yeah,
time to take a
I can
break.
see that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's take a
Yes.
quick break.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So,
Okay.
audience, thank you very much for joining us. You're watching Devil's Advocate with me and Jill Dell. This show is about answering the tough questions about copiosis and providing those answers in a way that the audience can benefit from learning about copiosis. We're on every Monday at 1 o'clock Pacific time, live, and then it's of course pre-recorded and housed on YouTube. If you're interested in participating in Devil's Advocate, we'd be happy to have you on the show and ask your sticky question. Or if you just want to submit your question, do so in the YouTube comments, and we'll be happy to ask that question live on the show. If you're interested in finding out more about copiosis, you can go to this website where we've got a ton of answers about what we're doing and how we're doing it and the transition plan and everything. And then this site here has a list of the budget that we are using to run Copiosis. It shows where all the money that's coming in is going, and there's no hiding places where that money is going. So go to patreon.com and you can find out more about that. You can even become a patron of and support our work for as little as $1 a month. I think it's $1 a month. It might be $2 a month, but who cares? Any amount you want, you can pretty much support us at. So thank you for watching. All right, Jill, let's continue. What's the next question?
All right. So, all right. So, another event that has happened recently is that some people were like questioning your motives for Copiosis. Now, most people who are listening are probably not familiar with your background and kind of the amazing adventure that you've been on. So you were in the military, correct? For how many years?
I was in the Marines for 9 years. Yeah. I was a journalist in the Marines. Yeah. That's important for this question.
Yeah.
I was not
And
in
then,
military intelligence.
And you worked for Intel,
Yes.
right?
I
And
worked
what
for
did you do
Intel.
for Intel?
I worked for Intel for 7 years, and I started as the community relations manager. So I managed a small team of public affairs people who did things like the United Way, managed things like the United Way program for Intel, the community relations programs we had. We managed our relationships with nonprofits. We administered the grants that the Intel Foundation gave to nonprofits in the communities. And then from time to time, I gave speeches. That's what I did at first. And then I took another job at Intel where I ran a global organization called Community Solutions, where we took Intel technology and we looked for opportunities in the world where we could use that technology to help make the world a better place through nonprofit organizations. And I did that for about 4 years before I left Intel to become an entrepreneur.
Okay. And then as an entrepreneur, what did you do?
As an entrepreneur, I started 3 companies. The first one was called Nedwater. It was a water company where we bottled water from a 10,000-year-old aquifer right beneath the city of Portland and delivered that water to businesses in downtown Portland by bicycle. And then the second company we created, my co-founder and I created, was a company called the Tiny House Podcast, where we did a podcast about the tiny house movement. And then the third company we created was a company called a Documentary Weekend, which was a short-lived company. It's not worth talking about. And then after that, I started a company called Positively Focused, which was organized around my spiritual practice, where I provide a spiritual mentoring to one-on-one clients. And at that same time, I created another organization called the Transamorous Network, where I do the same thing that Positively Focused does, but specifically targeting the transgender community. And then I also created Copiosis, right, a couple of years before those 2 organizations. And that's my entire career up to this point.
Okay, so what was suggested to me was that because of your military background and your stint at Intel, that you somehow have a very undesirable underground hidden plan, like it's really just that you're gonna use the military to take over the world or something. I don't know exactly what their thoughts were, but it was suggested that you really are still involved in the military and you really are still involved in some sort of intel in connection with or in cahoots with the military, some sort of, design that they've come up with to, have their way with the world or whatever. I don't know. So I I don't mean to be, but the question was raised, and I'm thinking, I, I just want to know your thinking and your thoughts on that. I mean, because I think that though those things are going to come up if
I know, that's
Copious
why
gets
I'm laughing.
people want this, and people want this, they're going to go, yeah, but he was in the Marine Corps, and how did it's not, he's just being run by the military, and you know oh, and yeah, he worked at Intel, and you know what I mean. It's just like what's going to happen, right?
Yes,
You
I
see the
do.
writing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Everything any of us have ever done is going to be,
That's right. It's
yeah,
going to be scrutinized. That's
that's the
right.
wrong thing. That's what they're really doing. Yeah, and the conspiracy theories and yeah, yeah. Anyway, so I thought
It's
it would be interesting to address.
it's very interesting. It on so many levels, Jill. It's interesting because it's like I never expected to be the subject of a conspiracy theory, number one. And number two, I never expected it to happen so soon. I mean, we haven't really done anything yet, and already people are starting to make crazy ass
It's just
conspiracy. I,
it's just beginning.
I know, Jill. It's just
And,
it's just
and
crazy.
just like that little twinge of ugh is
Yes,
gonna be like a mountain
yes,
slide of venom.
yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's really interesting too, and we're going to get to the details, but it's really interesting too that the origin of this. And so um, it reminds me very much of the birther conspiracy of Barack Obama, where someone came out with this wild idea that he was born, was it in Nigeria? I think he was supposed to be born, or some African country, and that his birth certificate proved it. But he even showed his birth certificate and showed that no, he's a United States citizen born, I think, in Hawaii. And this is the same thing. It's like the credibility of this conspiracy falls apart when you look at the details. So let's look at the details. And I wish I could have prepared a little bit better by providing my DD-214. So my DD-214 shows
Mhm.
now the people who make, and we're going to talk about the people who make this claim and why they're making this claim. And this might last the whole show because there's a lot of detail to unpack here.
All right.
So these people will probably say that my DD-214 was somehow altered by the government. But my
Well,
DD-214,
those things are very possible and could happen, I'm sure.
that's
There
right.
are a variety of reasons,
Yes.
right?
So my
So it's not
DD-214,
unlikely. Okay.
right, right.
All right. So
So
you
my
said,
DD-214. So the DD-214 is the document, it's a separation document. It's the official
yeah,
document of separation. You did okay. So it shows
right.
what the person did in their career in the military and when they got out and at what rank they got out. And it clearly
Yeah.
shows that I got out in 1991 and that my last job was print journalist. Actually, that was the only job I had while in the Marine Corps. I never worked for military intelligence, which is G2. It's called G2. And I don't even know anybody who worked in intelligence. And so there's no connection I have with the intelligence in the military. The other part of the conspiracy that these two people, and again, we're going to talk about these two people in a minute. The other thing about this conspiracy that they claimed was that somehow I'm affiliated with Silicon Valley through my connections at Intel. My my relationship with Intel extended between Hillsboro, Oregon, which used to be a small town in Oregon. Now it's fairly large because it's the high tech center of Oregon. Hillsboro, Oregon,
Yeah.
and Chandler, Arizona, which is where actually I think Intel is headquartered in not Chandler, but a city, Santa Clara, California, which is close to Silicon Valley. I've been
Yeah.
to Chandler once, but sorry, Santa Clara once, but I've mostly traveled between Hillsboro and Chandler because the headquarters of the public affairs office, which I belong to as the community affairs manager for Oregon, was in Chandler, Arizona. So I've only been to Santa Clara, Silicon Valley once. I've never been there for any extended period of time. So there's no connection that I have between Silicon Valley or military intelligence and what I'm doing. The third thing I'd point out is that one of the things that these people said was follow the money. Well, if you follow the money, first of all, the amount of money that's come into Copiosis is far under $100,000. And you'll see that the major source of that money is two private individuals, both of which have a lot of Bitcoin. And that is the source of most of the money that's come into Copiosis. The minority share of the money that has come into Copiosis, and again, the total amount is under $100,000. The most, the minority share of the total amount of money that's come from Copiosis is spread across, I'd say, 35 private people around the world who have given between $2 and $50 a month for probably a maximum length of 24 months per person. An average, let's say an average length of about 7 months per person. So it ranges between 2 months and 4 years probably. So that's the source of the money. And I can show you the paper trail that shows you where the money's coming from. It's not coming from an investment arm. It's not coming from a hedge fund. It's not coming from a private company. It's not coming from some rich person yet. It's not coming from the government. It's not coming from some mega corporation. It's just coming from a bunch of, not even a bunch, a small number of people who believe passionately in what Copiosis is doing. Now, I should say there's another pot of money that has funded Copiosis, and it's significant. It's about $250,000. And that money comes from one person, and that one person is me. So I can show you the history of my Fidelity account. My Fidelity account was the retirement account that I had after I left Intel. It was about $350,000. It now is at zero. So I've used all that money. It's okay because
Yeah.
I create my reality. So more money is coming. I used all that money to fund my startup organizations and Copiosis. So if you follow the money, most of the money comes back to me. And the
Right.
rest of it goes back to these private individuals who are passionate about Copiosis and want to see it happen. So there's nothing nefarious going on behind the scenes. And most of that money has been spent on things like website development and the equipment that I use to run Copiosis. Like right now, there are lights on either side of me. There's a green screen behind me. There's a camera, an expensive digital camera. There's a drone I purchased. There's an iPad I purchased with the money. There's a external hard drive I purchased with the money. It's a lot of equipment that has gone into running Copiosis. And then it's online services like server services and hosting services and things like that. And so the money has gone exactly where you see it, into Copiosis. So now let's talk about the specific people who are making this claim and why they're making this claim.
Okay.
So these two people, it's Chris Agnos, and his partner or wife maybe, whose name I can't remember right now. But about 3 years ago, Chris Agnos was running an organization, he still runs it, called Sustainable Human. It's a Facebook group on Facebook with well over 1 million people, I think, in it. There's probably 2 million people in that group. And when he first found out about Copiosis, he was making these videos, really beautiful videos about saving the planet and ecology and things like that, really stunning videos. And when he found out about Copiosis, and I have the email trail, I have it in my inbox, I looked for it just a couple weeks ago when this conspiracy first arose. He wrote to me and said he was really excited about Copiosis and would like to somehow support it in some way. And I asked him how he would like to support it. And he said, we came to an agreement that the best way he could support it was to help develop the website more and to develop some videos about it. And I said to him that, everyone who's working on Copiosis, including myself, is not taking any income because we don't have any income to give anybody. And he said that was fine, so long as that at some point in the future, if we are still working together and Copiosis did start bringing in money, he would get a share of that for the work that he had contributed to it. And I agreed that we would do that. So we started working together and it was going well. I was testing his commitment and I'm sure he was testing my trustworthiness, that kind of a thing. And then one day he wrote me an email and said he couldn't work with me anymore. And I asked him why he couldn't work with me. And he said that his partner had done some investigation on me and she found the Transamorous Network. Now, the Transamorous Network is one of the companies that I founded after working with my co-founder on these other companies. And as I said, what I do in that company is I provide one-on-one mentoring with, actually, I didn't say this part, so I'm going to be more specific about what it's about. I provide one-on-one mentoring to men who are attracted to trans women who are afraid and ashamed of being attracted to trans women because they're afraid that they themselves and others will think they're gay. They're not gay when they're attracted to trans women, but that's another matter. So what I do is I help men like that find relief from being ashamed and embarrassed about their trans attraction. And the reason why I started that was because the research I had done in 2016, if you remember back in 2016, trans women in America were being murdered left and right. And when I looked at the stats behind why they were being killed, it turned out that almost half of the trans women who were being killed in 2016 were killed in the context of a romantic relationship or a sexual relationship with a trans attracted man. And the killer was the trans attracted man, the partner the trans woman was involved with. And more often than not, in almost half the cases, the reason why the trans attracted man murdered the trans woman is because he was triggered by his own shame and embarrassment for being attracted to a trans woman. In other words, he was afraid that his friends were going to find out, or his
Yeah.
coworkers were going to find out, or his mother and father were going to find out, and the shit would hit the fan if that happened. So they killed the person instead. So I decided I wanted to do something about it, and that's why I created the Transamorous Network. Now, the Transamorous Network puts on a show called In Your Face on Facebook, and another show called the Transamorous Network podcast on YouTube. And that show, both those shows are co-hosted by me and a trans woman. Her name is Remy. Now, on that show, we talk like they do in the transgender community. And oftentimes, transgender people will call other transgender people bitch, tranny, like they'll talk like this. What's up, bitch? How
Yeah.
you doing? It's like that, right? And so everybody, a lot of people know that, but apparently Chris's partner did not know that. And so she found out, she watched one of our shows where I, as the main host, started the show like this. What's up, bitches? Like that. And she took
Uh-huh.
offense. She took offense at this. Now, to my knowledge, Chris's partner is not transgender, nor does she have affiliation with the transgender community. So she doesn't know
Right.
anything about what it's like to be trans. But she complained to her partner, Chris, that I was somehow damaging the self-esteem of transgender people by referring to them as bitches, even though that's how they talk with each other to each other.
Right.
And
Right.
so Chris decided that he did not want to work with me because she had this problem. So I wrote back to Chris and I said, that's fine if you want to do that, but just so you know, your wife, your partner, whatever she was, doesn't know what she's talking about. So I think Chris went and talked to her, and he came back and said, I would like you to try and talk to her and try to smooth
Right.
the water so that we can continue to work with each other. So I said, sure, ask her to send me an email. So she sent me an email, and the email, instead of saying, I'd be open to talking with you more about what's going on with this, she just kind of doubled down on her accusation. So I called bullshit on her accusation and explained to her in this email how she was wrong. She did not like that I told her she was wrong. She thinks she's right. And even to this day, she thinks she's right. So she sent an email back attacking me. And then Chris sent me another email back also attacking me. And what Chris told me in this over the phone, I think, or it might have been in an email, was he has to side with his partner because that's his partner. And
Yeah.
and I was like, fine, if you want to do that, do that. Copiosis is going to go on without you. It's no big deal to Copiosis if you don't want to work with me because of this bullshit claim. And that's how we ended it.
Yeah.
That's the extent of the story.
Okay. Well, one of the claims that she makes is because she works with all of these, or has in the past, or still is, works with all of these people in the know in Silicon Valley that you are part of some intel military uh,
It's hard to say what it is, huh? Because she won't be specific.
yeah, and yeah, and we should probably take a break before you answer this
Good
one.
one. Good one. Yeah.
All
So
right.
so audience, thank you for sticking around. This has gotten really interesting, hasn't it? So you're watching Devil's Advocate. I'm Perry Gruber,
Crazy.
the founder of Copiosis, and that's Jill Dell, the co-host and the Devil's Advocate of the show. This is a weekly live stream we hold every Monday at 1 o'clock Pacific time, where we answer the sticky questions. And boy, are we answering a sticky one right now. Um, and so, if you're interested in finding out more about Copiosis, you can go to this website. If you're interested in finding out the details of where the money goes, woo, you can go to this website where we list a budget of where all the money is going, and you'll notice that my annual income needs is nowhere. I mean, if the government was supporting me, I'd be getting much more money than I'm reporting on my taxes. And the money that I'm reporting on my taxes is right around what's listed in the budget on that Patreon site. So go there and take a look. You'll see where the money is going. And then if you're interested in submitting a question or you have a follow-up to the topic we're talking about right now, you can submit a comment in the comment section and we will answer every comment. So let's get back to the show. All
Okay.
right, where were we?
So we're, the military intel conspiracy, Silicon Valley, Okay, so just to be on the devil's advocate side,
Please, yeah.
I could say that, you know, the you could have an account in a completely different person's name, social security number,
Absolutely.
everything. I mean, come on, we all know what our government is capable of doing when they want to hide someone in plain sight.
Absolutely. And this is
Right.
the thing. This is the thing about conspiracy theories is that you can't disprove them. You just can't. And I
Just
mean,
can't.
you can look at, you can, I am an open book. I'm willing to show you anything you want. Anybody, you can look at anything you want. I don't know how, the only thing I have hidden is a cryptocurrency password where I have Bitcoin holdings and some other crypto holdings, but none of them are worth over $3,000 right now. So, but you're right, Jill. If I was a military intelligence officer, it would be impossible for you to find out my credentials.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, it would.
So, but okay, so I guess we could go down the path of, you know, okay, so in if we look at what is Copiosis going to do
Yes,
with
Jill.
the military, what are they going to do with Homeland Security? What are they going to do with the CIA? What purpose will they're no longer going to be the aggressive war machine that they are now. They are
Or the sneaky illegal operator inside of U.S. borders, which they're not supposed to be doing, but do anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
So all of that would be shut down, and there would be, I assume, some sort of new constitution which outlines the purpose of the military would be, strictly for
It's hard to figure it out, huh?
defense,
Yeah.
only defense
Yeah.
inside our borders.
That's right. Or just on the outside so that
Well,
so the
I mean,
attacker doesn't have to come inside.
200 miles of your shoreline or whatever, but whatever we would consider,
Yes.
you would include that in your borders.
Yes,
But,
exactly.
only to prevent, and not to just go screw with everybody in the whole world because they have oil or something else we want, or we want a strategic base there so we can attack this country or that country if we need to. And, done with that. Done with that.
Your analysis is brilliant. So if anyone wants to know what, because you're not going to, if I am an agent, you're not going to figure it out. There's just no way you're going to figure it out. So what you have to do what you're suggesting, Jill. If anyone wants to find out what Perry's motivation is, you have to look at what copiosis results in. And with regard
Yes.
to agencies like the NSA and the CIA and the military, it basically removes the upper levels of the chain of command. It eliminates the presidency, the chief of staff, the secretary of defense, and the secretaries of all the armed forces secretaries, like the secretary of the Navy, the secretary of the Air Force, the secretary of the Army. It removes all of those people, and so it leaves. And with regard to the CIA and the NSA, it removes the cabinet level positions that are overseeing those organizations and creates a body. The same people in those agencies and in the militaries remain, but now instead of reporting to some higher authority, they report to the people, and the people are represented by their values, which are enshrined in the net benefit algorithm. So the people get to vote on how the algorithm rewards NBR or awards NBR. And so the Army, let's just take the Army as an example. The Army, everybody in the Army gets awarded NBR only for the acts that the Army conducts that produces net beneficial results. So is it net, this is fun, is it net beneficial for the Army to take over the United States and then rule the United States? No, it's not. So how would it, do you think it is? How would it be net beneficial to have the Army run the
I
country?
personally, I think the most dangerous time would be during the transition,
Absolutely. And so that's
right?
so so
So,
so think about
so
the people who
yeah,
are currently running the Army and the other services, not the people above those. So not the cabinet level people, but the generals. The generals in the United States Army, thank goodness, the generals have an oath that they swear to, and everyone else below that swears to that same oath. And most of the people who are in the military agree that that oath is like is serious business. Now, for better or for worse, the oath is to defend the Constitution against
yeah,
enemies, foreign and domestic. So
exactly.
it could be interpreted that copiosis is an enemy of the Constitution because copiosis eliminates government, which the Constitution creates through law,
Part of
right?
right,
Right. It
exactly.
creates all the executive and the judicial branches, and
All
the congressional branch too. Yeah. So
yeah,
the legislative, the legislative, the judicial, and the executive offices. The Constitution
right,
creates that,
right.
but the Constitution puts the power in we the people. So ultimately, the Constitution is the people. So the Army, the armed forces of the United States are designed to protect the people. So,
Yes.
and the generals take that very seriously. That's why, if you've heard anything about the conflict between the army and executives, presidents who try to do things, who potentially could try to do things that are against the law, you hear that the generals have a really hard time potentially having to follow those orders. And so there are people in policy making positions that are trying to change the law so that crackpot presidents can't do things like use nuclear missiles illegally. Because if they tried to,
Right.
currently, if they ordered such a thing, the generals would have to obey, which would put the generals in a sticky place because they wouldn't want to, but by law they have to, and they've agreed to this oath which says they have to. So
Right.
all of this is to say that you're right. The most dangerous time is the transition, and the question is going to be who are the generals who have authority over the military? Who are the generals going to side with? And my argument is they're going to side with the people. And the reason why I say that is because there was a survey not long ago, a couple decades back, of the armed forces, and
Uh-huh.
the members of the survey generally asked, if there was a revolt, who whose side would you side on? Would it be the executive branch or would it be the people? And the military members said it would they would side with the people. They would defend the people. And so you're right. It's going to be this is serious business, this copiosis
So the,
transition
so the, yeah, so the military would defend the people from the military. I
from
don't.
the
It
executive.
doesn't really make sense. I
It would
mean,
they would defend the people from the executive, from a rogue
well,
executive.
the only power the executive would have is to use force that would they would order the military to do. So
So
if they, yeah,
what would the military be forced with having to do? Disobeying an unlawful order. So they
right.
would have to declare the orders of the executive or the Senate or the Congress illegal. They'd have to make that decision themselves and face the possible criminal repercussions of that, of disobeying.
The thing is it only takes, like one general to say, yeah, we're gonna, we're gonna carry. This is anarchy, and we're gonna carry out your orders to defend the people who don't want this from the people that do. I don't know.
Which is why we need a peaceful transition that has the majority of the power on our side. Notice I did not say the majority of the people, the majority of the
Right,
power. So if when we're able to get organizations
right,
like the Heritage
yeah,
Foundation and Apple and Google and Uber and Facebook and Daimler and Ford and John Deere and all these
and
big corporations,
Amazon, and yeah, all of the, yeah,
and then the
basic,
individuals like Bezos and Soros and Berk,
yeah,
Berkshire Hathaway.
yeah,
What's that guy's name? What's it?
right.
Warren Buffett. Yeah,
I try not to know who those
yeah,
people
yeah.
are.
So this is why we need to get people like that on our side, and we will because our transition makes logical sense for the future.
Perry, I'm about out of power on my phone,
That's
so
okay.
we might go dead a little earlier than expected.
That's okay.
So I'm down to 13%. So if I disappear, that's why. It's
That's
not
cool.
any conspiracy theory that Perry cut me off. I just want everybody to know.
That would be awesome if
That's
that
not
did
what
happen,
happened.
though.
That would be hilarious. I thought I better throw that in there before it happens. Oh, he cut her off. She had it all right all along. Yeah. So I think it will be, and it'll certainly be something that you will have to be like sorted out. Like, you know, who, so if intelligence comes back with this information that there's a threat from, I don't know, who do Wahoo country,
Hmm.
right? Then, sometimes you need to respond pretty quickly, or it could be, well, let's go send some people to talk to these people and
That's
find
right.
out, well, what is it that is, how are we threatening you?
Yes.
How do you feel threatened? What can we do for you
Yes.
that, you know, w- we can bring you in power sources, and we can bring you in
Yes.
clean water, and we can
Yes.
build houses for you, and we
Yes.
can, bring your people industry and jobs, and what do you want? We
Exactly,
can get
Jill.
that for you. What do you
Exactly.
want?
Exactly.
Yeah,
We'll give you
well, you
anything you
gave
want.
them over there this, and we didn't get nothing, and so we're mad, right? Yeah. Our people are all bitching and moaning because they want to have the same thing the U.S. has, and they don't have it, and they're, like, being mean to us. So,
That's exactly
right,
right, Jill. So
right,
it's like
exactly.
our
Right. You
best
just go, what's the problem, and how can we fix it?
our best defense, even during the transition, is a peaceful offense. It's like
Yes.
going to them and talking with them. Like, what's your
Yes.
beef? What can we do for
What do
you?
you mean? What do you want?
And it doesn't
What do you
cost us anything. Yeah, just give them what they want. What do you want?
what do you want? You know what they want. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
have
And
anything.
people would counter with, "Oh, well, who's going to pay for that?" And well, you're not being taxed, so it won't be you. You know,
Exactly.
it'll be the people that want to make more NBR are going to provide the materials that we would need to provide them with, solar or wind energy.
Yep,
And the people that want to make more NBR because, they like driving around in yachts or whatever, then, right?
that's right.
Yeah. They like flying all over the world and, whatever, like, or they just makes them feel good because they're rich,
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Look at all the money I made, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
must be something. I must be good at something
that's
because I
right.
got lots.
Oh, it looks like we may have lost her. Just like she said, 5 minutes till. Yep, we've lost her. So, folks, so Jill had some trouble. Her battery just went dead, we think, just like she said it would. Maybe she'll call back in, we'll see. But if she doesn't, you've been watching, this is so fun. You've been watching the show Devil's Advocate. I'm Perry Gruber, the founder of Copiosis. I had Jill Dell, the Devil's Advocate, on the other call, but she warned us about 4 minutes ago that her battery was going to go dead. So no, this is not a conspiracy theory. I have not, or my larger intelligence team, my military intelligence team, watching from NASA from the NSA headquarters in DC, did not abruptly cut her off. Her battery went dead on her phone. That's all that happened. So I don't think she's going to come back. So what I'm going to do instead of waiting for her to come back is I'm going to say, you've been watching Devil's Advocate. And we may pick up this question about the military in our next show because it was a really good topic to talk about. Jill was 100% right. The most dangerous part of our transition is the transition. And there are going to be people who are scared about what we're doing, as well as people who love what we're doing. And those people in the United States are just going to have to hash it out, or wherever it happens in the United States or elsewhere in the world. They're just going to have to hash it out and figure out what they want to do. We at Copiosis think that they're going to lean in the direction of Copiosis and all is going to be well. So tune in next week. We'll have a wonderful show. I promise you, it may be just as good as this one. This one was fantastic. And we will see you next week. Bye.